The morning exploded into chaos. A loud crash echoed across the roadside as a car slammed its brakes inches away from Daniel's legs. "Are you mad?" the driver yelled. Oil spilled, tools scattered. Daniel staggered back, barely steadying himself. People turned. Daniel bent down calmly, picking up his wrench with oil-stained fingers. "I'm sorry, sir," he said quietly. The driver sneered. "Sorry won't fix stupidity." Laughter burst out. Someone shouted, "Poor man almost died and still apologizing." Daniel swallowed hard, but said nothing. By late morning, the roadside mechanic's spot was alive with noise. Engines roared, horns screamed, dust danced in the air. Daniel crouched under a car, tightening a bolt when a customer stormed toward him. "You cheated me!" the man barked. "The car is still shaking!" Daniel slid out, wiping sweat from his face. "I only fixed the hose you asked for," he explained gently. The man laughed loudly. "Listen to him! A roadside mechanic arguing with me?" Neighbors gathered. One woman shook her head. "That's why he'll die poor." The man jumped into his car and sped off without paying. Daniel stared at the empty space where the car had been. He exhaled slowly, then returned to his tools. Quiet dignity. Midday sun scorched his skin. His stomach growled. A group of neighbors sat nearby, watching him openly. "Useless man," one said loudly. "Every day grease, every night hunger." Another added, "He thinks he's human like us." Daniel heard everything. He always did. But he kept working. Then it happened. A black SUV approached too fast. Daniel, standing by the roadside, raised his hand. "Madam, slow down." The car sped through a muddy puddle. Splash! Brown water soaked Daniel from head to toe. Mud dripped from his hair. His faded shirt clung to his skin. His tools lay scattered in filth. The driver laughed through the open window. She screamed, "That's your bath for today!" The crowd roared with laughter. Someone clapped. Daniel stood frozen, humiliated, silenced. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Stop!" Everyone turned. A young woman stood there, basket of vegetables on her head. Her eyes burned with anger. "How can you people be this wicked?" she demanded. The crowd fell quiet. She rushed to Daniel. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded, unable to speak. "I'm Ruth," she said, "and I'm sorry for what they did." No one had ever said that to him before. Ruth looked at his soaked clothes, then at the mocking faces. She quietly said to him, "Just calm down, I will be back." Before Daniel could respond, she ran off. People whispered, "She's mad? Helping a useless man? She'll regret it." Daniel stood there, confused, hopeful, scared. Minutes later, Ruth returned, breathless. In her hands were 2 clean shirts and a trousers. "My uncle kept them to burn," she said, embarrassed. "They're old but clean." She placed them in Daniel's trembling hands. His eyes widened. "For me?" he asked. She smiled. "For you." Something broke inside him. "Thank you," he whispered, voice cracking. The crowd dispersed awkwardly. Daniel changed behind his shed. When he stepped out, Ruth was waiting. "You didn't deserve that," she said. Daniel looked at her. Really looked. "No one ever said that to me." She smiled gently. "Someone should have." They sat on a wooden crate. They talked. About life, about dignity, about dreams buried under survival. For the first time, Daniel laughed. As Ruth stood to leave, she turned back. "I'll come back tomorrow," she said. "I will bring food for you." Daniel watched her walk away. Hope followed her footsteps. The road felt different. The world felt quieter. Because that day, a man the world humiliated met a woman who saw his worth. And that alone changed everything for him. That night when Ruth got home, chaos was already waiting. The house vibrated with noise, plates clattering, radio blaring, voices arguing over nothing important. She dropped her market basket gently and spoke without warning. "Auntie, do you know that poor mechanic is a graduate?" The room went dead silent for one heartbeat. Then explosive laughter. Her aunt slapped her thigh. Her uncle almost choked on his drink. The 2 daughters laughed so hard, tears rolled down their faces. "Graduate?" the aunt gasped. "Of what suffering?" "Mechanical engineering," one cousin mocked, standing up dramatically. From which university? Roadside Polytechnic? The laughter grew louder, crueler. Ruth stood there, stunned. Her uncle wiped his mouth and shook his head slowly. "My dear," he said coldly, "I hope it's not that you're running mad." The words hit like a slap. "How on earth," her aunt added sharply, "would you have a conversation with such a man?" She circled Ruth like a judge. "This your attitude of wanting to be there for everyone? I hope it won't put you in serious trouble." One cousin scoffed. "Next thing, you'll say he's your destiny." More laughter. Ruth's chest tightened, but she didn't shout. She didn't cry. She simply said quietly, "He's intelligent. He speaks with sense. And he's human." That only made them laugh harder. That night, Ruth lay awake on her thin mattress. The laughter replayed in her head like a curse. Am I foolish? Is kindness stupidity? She remembered Daniel's face when she handed him the clothes, the surprise, the disbelief, the gratitude. Her heart softened. "No," she whispered to the dark, "I'm not foolish." At the same time, miles away, Daniel sat alone in his room. Rain drummed violently on the roof, water dripping into a basin. He didn't move. He couldn't. His mind was elsewhere, on her. Ruth, the girl who looked at him without pity, without shame, without fear of mockery. "A girl like that," he murmured. He laughed softly to himself. "A girl like that doesn't exist." Yet she had existed, today. He remembered her voice cutting through the crowd. "Stop!" No one had ever defended him before. He lay back on his torn mattress, staring at the ceiling. Why did she help me? What does she gain? His chest tightened, not with pain, but something unfamiliar. Hope. Morning came too fast. The roadside woke again. Horns, dust, insults. Daniel arrived early. He cleaned his tools carefully, like they mattered. Then he saw her, Ruth, walking slowly, holding food flask. Their eyes met. Daniel froze. She smiled, not loudly, not dramatically, just warmly. "Good morning," she said. He stood up quickly, almost dropping his wrench. "Good morning," he replied, nervous. They talked. Not about poverty, not about suffering, about books, about dreams, about how life can redirect people. "You studied mechanical engineering?" she asked. He nodded. "Yes, life happened." She didn't laugh. She listened. That alone shocked him. Days passed. Ruth stopped by often, sometimes with food, sometimes with conversation, sometimes just silence. The neighbors noticed. They whispered, "She's mad. She'll regret this." Daniel heard them, but now he didn't feel alone. One evening, Ruth sat beside him and said, "People think dignity comes from money." Daniel smiled faintly. "But it comes from how you treat others," she added. He looked at her deeply. "You see me," he said. She nodded. "Yes, I do." And in that moment, a friendship was born. Quiet, dangerous, unapproved by the world, but real. That night, Ruth prayed differently, and Daniel slept with peace for the first time in years, because while the world laughed, two hearts were beginning to understand each other. One fateful day, a customer was screaming at Daniel, "You think laughter fixes engines?" The man kicked Daniel's toolbox, sending spanners flying across the ground. Ruth, who just left his workshop, Ruth ran back in shock. People gathered instantly, like vultures sensing drama. Daniel bent down calmly, picking up his tools one by one. "I'm sorry, sir," he said gently to the customer. The man cursed and stormed away. Ruth's hands were shaking. "Why do they treat you like this?" She whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. "I'm used to it." That hurt her more than the shouting. Moments later, the tension broke. Daniel cracked a joke. Ruth laughed. Loud, free laughter. For a moment, the road disappeared. They played with a loose wrench, teasing each other like children. People stared. A poor mechanic laughing? Impossible. As the sun leaned westward, Ruth picked her bag. "I should be going," she said. Daniel's heart raced. "Please, Ruth," he said quickly. "Let's take a walk together." She paused. The road was long. The whispers were loud. Then she nodded. They walked. Past the same people who mocked him, past cars that splashed dust, past lives that ignored them. Daniel's palms were sweating. His chest thudded loudly. Now or never. He stopped suddenly. Ruth turned. "What is it?" The noise of the street faded. Daniel dropped to his knees. Right there, Ruth froze. Daniel looked up at her, eyes shining. "My life took a new turn when I met you," he said. Her breath caught. "That day you came to my rescue. You didn't just save my body," he swallowed. "You saved my soul." The street went silent. "Please," he continued, voice trembling, "will you be my friend forever?" Tears filled Ruth's eyes. Then he added softly, "Please, marry me." Shock rippled through the crowd. A woman laughed. A man scoffed. "Marriage? With what money?" Ruth covered her face. She trembled. Daniel's heart stopped. Then she lowered her hands. "Yes," she said. The world froze. "I will," she repeated. Then she smiled through tears. "But you must be ready to fight." "Fight?" Daniel whispered. She nodded. "My family, society, pride." She took his hands. "Love like this doesn't come without war." Daniel stood shaking. "I'll fight," he said. "Every day. No celebration, no applause, just two hearts beating loudly." As they walked back, Daniel whispered, "I have nothing to offer you." Ruth squeezed his hand. "Then we'll start with nothing together." The road watched them leave. The explosion came that same night. Not thunder, not rain, but rage. Ruth had barely stepped into the living room when her aunt slammed the door shut. "Sit down." The tone alone heavy. Her uncle folded his arms, faced. The two daughters leaned against the wall, waiting, hungry for drama. Ruth sat. Her heart pounded. "I have something to say," she began. Her aunt laughed sharply. "We know. It's about that mechanic." Silence fell. Ruth lifted her chin. "Yes," she said. "Daniel." The room erupted. "Have you lost your senses?" Her aunt screamed. "Is poverty now romance?" Her uncle banged the table. "Do you know what people are saying about this family?" One cousin clapped sarcastically. "So it's true, you're throwing your life away." Ruth stood up slowly. Her voice shook but did not break. "Auntie, I found peace with him." That word, peace, set them on fire. Peace doesn't cook food. Peace won't pay hospital bills. Peace won't remove shame from this family. Ruth took a deep breath. "Yes, he is poor," she said honestly, "but he is hard-working. He is kind. And I believe we can start with nothing and build our dream life." The room went silent. Then her aunt laughed, a cold laugh. "You can go ahead," her aunt said slowly. "Marry him." Ruth's heart leapt until the rest came. "But count us out of the marriage," her uncle added, "and count us out of your poor life." The words sliced deep. No wedding support, no blessings, no family. Ruth nodded slowly, tears blurring her vision. "Thank you," she whispered. They stared at her. "For showing me who I am," she added quietly. She turned and walked out. News spread fast, faster than wildfire. "The mad girl is marrying the mechanic. Under a mango tree, they say. No hall, no pride." Laughter followed them everywhere. The wedding day came, quiet and hot. A mango tree stood tall at the edge of the community. No chairs, no music, no decoration. Just Daniel, waiting. His hands trembled. He thought of all he didn't have. When Ruth arrived, wearing a simple dress, dust on her slippers, her smile silenced his fear. People gathered, not to celebrate, but to mock. Is this a wedding or a picnic? Even the mango tree feels ashamed. Daniel bowed his head. Ruth squeezed his hand. "I'm here," she whispered. They exchanged vows softly, no applause, only whispers and laughter. But when Daniel said, "I do," and Ruth replied, "I always will," the mango leaves rustled, as if heaven nodded. Marriage did not bring magic, it brought reality. The leaking roof, empty cupboards, late nights. Daniel worked harder, longer hours at the roadside. Customers still cheated him, insults still came. Ruth joined the struggle. She became a cleaner in a small company, scrubbing floors others dirtied without thought. Sometimes she returned home with swollen hands, still smiling. The explosion came that same night. Not thunder, not rain, but rage. Sometimes she returned home with swollen hands, still smiling. Neighbors watched. She'll soon regret it. Love won't last hunger. But every night Ruth cooked first for Daniel. Every night Daniel thanked her like a queen. Sometimes they slept hungry, sometimes they laughed anyway, because love lived there, not comfort. One night, as rain dripped through the roof, Ruth leaned on Daniel's shoulder. "We started with nothing. she said softly. Daniel kissed her forehead. We'll turn it into something. Outside, the world laughed. Inside, a foundation was being built. The night was unusually quiet, too quiet. Ruth was stirring a small pot of soup, watery, careful, when footsteps echoed outside, Daniel's footsteps. But tonight, they sounded different. Stronger, calmer, certain. The door opened. Ruth turned with a smile and froze. Daniel stood there, holding a beautifully wrapped box. Not plastic, not paper bag, a real gift box. Her heart skipped. Daniel, she whispered. He smiled gently. For you. She took it with trembling hands and opened it. Inside lay a stunning dress, simple, elegant, expensive. Ruth gasped. This is too much, she said, shocked. How? Daniel held her hands. I'm taking you to my people tomorrow. The spoon fell from her hand. What? She gasped. Her mind raced. Your people? She repeated. I thought you said they disowned you. You said they vowed never to see you again. Daniel nodded slowly. Yes. Her fear grew. Then why now? He took a deep breath. They called me today, he said. They apologized. And they asked to meet you. Ruth sat down hard on the bench. Her heart pounded violently. Daniel, are you sure? They hated you. They rejected you. He smiled faintly. Tomorrow, he said softly, you'll understand. That night, Ruth did not sleep. Morning came with unease. Ruth dressed carefully in the gifted dress, her best look since marriage. Her hands shook. Neighbours watched from their windows. Where are they going? Is it interview? Maybe debt collectors? Ruth whispered. Daniel, I'm scared. He squeezed her hand. Trust me. Then the ground trembled. Engines roared. Black SUVs rolled into the narrow street. 1, 2, 3, 4. People screamed. Someone shouted, Jesus! Children ran. Neighbours' panels? Police! Police! Who did the mechanic offend? Ruth's knees weakened. Daniel, she whispered in terror. The cars stopped. Doors opened. Men in black suits stepped out. Serious, silent. One walked straight to Daniel and bowed. Sir? The street went dead silent. Ruth's heart nearly stopped. Sir? She whispered. Daniel opened the car door for her. Please, he said gently. Get in. Her hands trembled as she obeyed. Neighbours watched with mouths open. The convoy drove off. They drove far, out of the poor district, past highways, into a city Ruth had never seen. Glass buildings, clean roads, security gates. Then the cars stopped before a massive mansion. Ruth gasped. This must be a hotel, she whispered. The gates opened. Inside, staff stood in rows. As Daniel stepped out, they bowed. Welcome home, sir. Ruth froze. Her ears rang. Her world tilted. She turned slowly. Daniel? He removed his worn jacket, straightened his posture, his eyes no longer tired, calm, powerful. I'm sorry I lied, he said softly. Her breath hitched. I needed to know who would love me when I had nothing. The truth crashed into her like thunder, the mechanic, the poverty, the suffering. A disguise. Ruth collapsed to her knees. Tears poured uncontrollably. All those nights, the hunger, the insults. Daniel knelt before her. Was the price of knowing your heart, he said. A regal old woman stepped forward, his grandmother. She studied Ruth carefully, then smiled. She passed, she announced. You are my grandson's wife, Ruth sobbed. I would have loved him even if he stayed poor, she cried. Daniel lifted her gently. I know, he whispered. That's why I gave you the world. That night, Ruth slept on silk sheets, but her heart remained humble because she didn't marry wealth. She married love that chose truth over. The next morning did not bring peace. It brought judgment. Ruth woke up in a room so large she thought she was still dreaming. Silk curtains, soft carpet, gold-framed mirrors. Yet her heart was heavy. She barely slept. The door opened quietly. The grandmother wishes to see you. Ruth's stomach tightened. The room Ruth was led into felt cold despite its beauty. Tall windows, ancient portraits, silence that pressed against the chest. At the centre sat the grandmother, upright, regal, eyes sharp as truth itself. Come closer, she said. Ruth obeyed. The door shut behind her. The air thickened. Sit, the grandmother commanded. Ruth sat. The old woman studied her for a long moment. You knew he was poor, she began. You knew he had nothing. You knew your family rejected you. And he told you his family did the same. They disowned him. She leaned forward. Why didn't you leave? The question cut deep. Ruth swallowed. Because love is not a bargain, she answered honestly. I didn't marry him for what he had, but for who he was. The grandmother's eyes narrowed. Were you not angry when hunger came? When rain soaked your bed? When people laughed at you? Ruth's voice trembled, but she did not lie. I cried sometimes, she admitted, but I never regretted choosing him. Silence. The grandmother stood slowly. What if he had remained poor forever? She asked sharply. What if there was no mansion, no wealth, no revelation? Ruth stood too. I would still be his wife, she said firmly, because peace is not something money gives. The grandmother stopped. Then she smiled, a victorious smile. You passed, she declared. Ruth froze. For generations, the grandmother said, walking slowly, this family has followed one rule. She turned. The heir must marry as a poor man, so we can see who truly loves him. Ruth's eyes filled with tears. This disguise, the grandmother continued, is our tradition. She stepped closer. And you won. Ruth fell to her knees, overwhelmed. Thank you, she whispered, not for wealth, but for truth. 2 months passed. 2 months of transformation. Ruth was taught everything. How to walk with grace, how to speak with authority, how to sit among powerful people without shrinking. But they could not teach humility. She already had it. Then came the day. The real wedding, a palace dressed in gold and white. Music filled the air. Guests arrived from across the world. Daniel stood tall. No disguise now. Ruth walked toward him like destiny fulfilled. At the back of the hall sat her aunt and uncle, not as family of the bride, just guests. They watched in silence, regret heavy on their faces. Her aunt whispered, we should have stood by her. Too late. The vows were spoken again, this time before the world. Applause thundered. Ruth was crowned wife of the heir, but her eyes searched for one thing only, Daniel. And when he smiled at her, she knew. She didn't win because she endured suffering. She won because she chose love when no one was watching. Hello, besties. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If this story touched your heart even a little, then it was worth telling. Moral lesson. Never judge people by where they are now. Judge them by their heart. Kindness is not weakness. Love that survives hardship is the love that lasts. And sometimes the person the world laughs at is the one heaven is testing. Ruth chose peace over pride. She chose love when no one was watching. And in the end, love spoke louder than wealth. Besties, if you believe that true love still exists, drop a love emoji in the comments. If you've ever been judged or looked down on, type I rise, because your story is not over yet. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you want more emotional, inspiring stories like this. Turn on your notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Until next time, besties, stay kind, stay humble, and always choose love.